In a new interview over the weekend, Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney said she will do whatever it takes to keep former President Donald Trump from taking back the White House in 2024. And that includes campaigning for Democrats and leaving the Republican Party if necessary.
We cannot afford to be a society where we're tearing each other apart. That's what our adversaries want us to be doing.
Right.
Think about the fact that what the leaders of the Chinese Communist Party say about American democracy. You know, they say our elections they don't work, they don't reflect the will of the people. Those are the same things Donald Trump says about our democratic process. And we have an obligation to make sure, and I certainly will, do whatever it takes to make sure Donald Trump isn't anywhere close to the Oval Office again.
Right. And last thing on this, and if that means, if you determine between now and whatever point that the best way for you to keep him from winning the presidency again is for you to seek it yourself, you're holding open the possibility.
I will do whatever it takes to make sure he's never near the White House.
Okay.
In this election, you have to vote for the person who actually believes in democracy. And that is just crucial, because if we elect election deniers, if we elect people who've said that they're not going to certify results or who are going to try to steal elections, then we really are putting the Republic at risk.
So I'm going to ask you, will you remain a Republican, regardless of what happens in the next election?
I'm going to make sure Donald Trump, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure he's not the nominee. And if he is the nominee, I won't be a Republican.
So this is the decision that Donald Trump has given anybody who has a commitment to this country and to their party. Liz Cheney is as Republican as it gets.
Right.
And may have to leave the party. Her answer was clear. She'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
If a run for president would make sense, if she could spoil it for him, she would do it. She would do whatever it takes because she sees him as that much of a threat to democracy. What did you think of that?
Well, I think here you have a person, this is a perfect litmus test for conservatism in the Trump era, where it doesn't matter how ideologically conservative you are. It doesn't matter what you've done your entire career. Politics is now not about ideas.
Exactly.
It's not about ideology. It's not about a belief system of governing. It's for... Unfortunately, for the Republican Party right now, whether it's 30, 40, 50, 60% of the Republican Party, based on the polls, it's just about one person. It's a personality cult. And as she said, you've got a majority of the Republican Party right now run by election deniers. I certainly understand there's a huge difference between Republicans in the United States Senate right now and Republicans in the United States House. I understand that'll make a lot of people angry that are watching this, but there are different gradations. But Liz Cheney is right. As you look out across there, and I think, unfortunately, some Republicans are trying to fool themselves into believing that, Trump's going to leave and, let's just keep electing these people even if they're election deniers or not. Liz Cheney believes, I happen to believe the same thing, and I have for some time, that it's no longer about liberal versus conservative, Republican versus Democrat. It's about whether you support Western democracy, whether you support free elections, or whether you support illiberal, an illiberal form of democracy. And I think the most surprising thing is at this stage now, we have people who are going out actively trying to take control of the conservative movement, the Republican Party, who are saying liberal democracy doesn't work. They want to move to what Orban is doing. They want to move more towards what Putin is doing. They want to move more towards, move away from democracy, move away from free elections, because they think Western democracy has been too corrupting. It's really bizarre that they're actually admitting this out loud, but they are.
And that's the Trump issue. And that used to be in itself an issue, whether you believe in democracy or not, or whether that's just something that you don't want to consider in your reality and you're going to stick with Trump. But then I think it's a tall order for Democrats to do extremely well in these midterms. We know that. We know that historically because of what happens in this type of midterm.
Yeah.
But there are two issues that are creeping into this that might even distract a person who is committed to Trump to the end.
Yeah.
And that would be abortion and maybe even this migrant issue. I think it might backfire. I think it might just cut most people the wrong way. It's not Christian. It's not right. It's inhumane. There are people who just will know that was wrong and will feel something about it. And then the Hispanic voters.
I think what you're talking about, obviously, is where Ron DeSantis takes people that have fled a communist country.
And other Republicans.
Yeah, but specifically, Ron DeSantis gets people who have fled a communist dictatorship, lies to them, sends them to an island in the Northeast, and apparently, it seems, lied to them, had people lie to them to do it. And this is another great example of Republicans overreaching. Everything they're doing, they're overreaching. You know what? Obviously, the Supreme Court's not making these calculations, but if the Supreme Court had just upheld the Mississippi case, which places the ban at 15 weeks, the majority of Americans would be with them. No, they go all the way. And now we see 10-year-old girls fleeing the state of Ohio to have an abortion because they were raped. And you have the most horrible scenarios being laid out. Women who are, could die on the operating table if Republicans get their way in Texas, if the Attorney General gets his way. So same with immigration. The Democrats have badly mishandled the southern border over the past several years, horribly. It's just that the issue doesn't seem to matter to them at all. It matters to most Americans. Most Americans believe that if you come into America, you need to come into America legally. That's where most Americans are. If that shocks you, you need to wake up, okay? You need to wake up. They take that issue, which should be a huge win for them, and they overreach by taking people who are fleeing a communist tyranny in Nicaragua, in Venezuela, coming up to the United States, and then treating them like political pawns. These poor, hungry refugees from a communist country. It is the antithesis. And if you don't believe me, go to the Google machine. It's the antithesis of everything Ronald Reagan believed, everything Ronald Reagan did, everything Ronald Reagan would have done. This, again, in all of these cases, Mika, and we see it with Liz Cheney, we see it, the through line here. You have a party that's not conservative. You have a party that's not following Edmund Burke and Kirk and Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher's view of conservatism. You have radicals who are following, going down the path of where Orban is, where Putin is. And it's frightening. That's why Liz Cheney said, she's a conservative, but it comes down to, do you support Western democracy? Do you support free elections? Or are you on the other side? And it's, for Liz Cheney, it's pretty simple.